Hello, everyone, and welcome to the channel called The Awakening Generator. I am Rose, and I am in Auckland. And of course, welcome to my friend Louise. How are you, Louise?
I'm good, thanks, my darling. How are you? You all
I'm
right?
really good, thank you. Yes, I am. And I'm so glad that we're having this conversation today because it's a manifestation of our dreams, right? Because we were planning to do this.
Mhm.
So, Louise, tell us where you are. Tell our audience, I know where you are, but tell our audience where you are at the moment.
Okay. Well, I'm in the UK. It
Yes,
is, in fact, just after 9:30 in the morning. So it's late for you.
it sure
Um,
is. Yes,
but we tend to function this way. When we're crossing these zones, nights and days sort of come together if souls meeting because it's the only way we can do it.
that's right.
Um, anyway, it's always lovely. So yes, I'm in the UK. Um, I'm in a sort of rather, I'm going to say, rather lovely space, really. I have no idea what's going on, but I know lots of going on.
Yeah,
I'm not really quite sure what I want to be doing, although I do a lot. It's sort of one of those sort of ambiguous situations where nothing's working, but everything's working fine. It's
yeah,
rather strange, but actually I quite like it because it's in a space where you really do know that you are the manifester and the creator of your experience.
that's right.
So anything from this moment on is what I'm creating. There's no point in going back because that's done.
Yeah,
So it's right here, right now is where I'm at, and
yeah.
it's lovely to be here with you.
Great. So, for the benefit of our audience, I'll tell you why Louise is saying what she's saying because I said to her before we started the recording, well, you can tell our audience what you do. And she said, well, I don't know what that is. And I said, well, yeah, of course, you're going to have to tell them you don't know what that is because we do so many things, right?
Mm.
There are things we do that we consciously know we're doing. And then there are things we do that we don't really realize we're doing. But I guess it sounds very blah and all over the place at the moment. Sorry to our audience, but I'll just have to say that. But our purpose in having this chat today is to have a chat and to just reach out and start to get acquainted with the people that are going to listen to this, because we believe that the people that come across this podcast is who the message is meant for. Now, I'm going to go to what we do. So, I mean, look, we do many things in our lives. We're both mothers, right? And, we've done the mother thing. We've got grown up children. And we do things like look after our families, but also we are involved in other things. Like I do work as in the mainstream, as in I'm a general accountant, but I do things like I'm a voluntary radio announcer. And I use that medium to introduce people who do work like Louise and I do in the esoteric, which is we do light language. So this is where I was taking it to. So in terms of light language, I have decided that I'm going to do a little bit of a teaching on light language, and I'll put it online. But before we get to the light language, because I'd like us to end our conversation with the light language, let's talk a little bit more about what you do, Louise, because I think you do the light language, but there's so many other
Mhm.
things. And I want to hear because I know that I might
Mm.
find something new about you that I don't know. So go on.
Mhm. Yeah, it is. It's always a voyage of discovery, isn't it? Because
Yes,
when you're young, you're always listening to what other people are telling you that you are, and you suddenly get to a point and you kind of feel a little agitated with some of the things people have said that you are because it doesn't resonate with you. It's their version of you, not your version of you. So we go through this sort of voyage of discovery. Well, who the hell am I? Because I've heard all these versions of who I am via other people, but that doesn't resonate. So we have to get to this point where we end up doing the work with ourselves. And we hear this in this sort of religious, or I say religious, sorry, spiritual community, where we hear a lot of throwaway sentences which are rather overused. I'm going to find myself. I was lost and then I was found. And who really am I? You know, am I the ego, or am I my truer self? You know, am I higher self? There's all these kinds of languages that we use, terminologies that we come into that can be rather confusing, I think, for people when you're literally just waking up to yourself and going, I just have no idea in the world anymore. This world has got me so confused. It's got me so out of sorts. I don't know where to begin. And you can feel rather low and depressed. And I've certainly been there for many years. But that's your inner struggle. That's your inner being finding and rooting you, nudging you always to ask that wonderful question of who am I? It's not who am I? It's who am I? The I. What is this? What is this? And it is for everybody absolutely fantastic. Everybody without exception. It's remarkable. It doesn't matter whether you're feeling down in the dumps or high as a kite and everything in between. You are amazing, because you've got all these different qualities which you are embarking on in this lifetime to discover. And you've only just got to give yourself the time of day to do that. And so many of us are so busy with so many things. I mean, you mentioned motherhood. You know, that in itself is quite a task. You know, I had 4. My husband was away a lot on military service back in the day. And now he's not. He's now retired from the military. And he's at home more, and all my kids have sort of moved out, which is amazing. But I have grandchildren too, so I'm still very closely connected to them. But I also chose along my route, you know, in this voyage of discovery. I did the religious thing. I joined church, went through a whole pile of experiences there, which was absolutely fascinating, and I wouldn't be without it. And that's where I was introduced to tongues, as it was in those days, you know, in religious circles. But I didn't know that outside it was called light language. And when I came to that, when I left the church, a story for another day, perhaps, and I discovered that it was called light language, it made so much more sense to me, because as you speak, light comes, whether you're aware of it or not. But certainly I've noticed that when I was sharing it with my husband, particularly, he would always burst into tears.
Wow.
And I used to think to myself, oh my gosh, what have I done? What's that? Are you okay? Are you okay? And he'd just say that the sound or whatever was coming was so moving. It touched him in a place that was so deep that that's what happened. And I was thinking, well, how wonderful to have something like that that can touch those spaces deep within and release something that you're not otherwise aware of or can do in any other way, or it may take you a long time to get round to it in your, you know, in your discovery or in your journey. Because I think that's also something that light language can really quantum jump us in our experiences.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
And I really only really beginning to value that of late. But yeah, it's Reiki master too, because I was doing laying on of hands, you know, within the community, within the church community. And I came across a nun who was doing it, but she called it Reiki, and I found that fascinating. So it got me looking into Reiki. So I did the course, did the first and second degree. I didn't fancy doing the teaching part of it. I was quite happy just to practice with that in this new awareness of, well, you know, the laying on of hands and the energy that flows through us is chi, you know, it's the Reiki energy, it's the life force, it's the spirit, you know, it's all these kind of things. It's just the same energy with a different name.
Yeah.
You know, that whatever is relevant for us in whatever culture we're in, it's the same energy, but we call these things different things.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah.
I like that you're saying about church that you wouldn't change anything about it, because even with me, you know, my journey started in church. I had a Christian grandmother, and when I was 16, I decided to go to church, and then that was my life until I was in my I think maybe late 30s. And it was through doing Bible college that I realized it was time to leave the church, because I started to learn some things that were saying to me that I couldn't quite carry on in that space, and that I was being called out of it. I felt that, you know, we say it in church, God's calling me out of here. And I expected that I would be going to another church, and I waited for a while to be guided to the next church, and it never came, and it still hasn't come. And I don't think it's actually coming after all this time.
You're it.
I'm it, exactly. And so, at the end of the day, I just found that I did this. I took up, I had the courage to leave, but I also had my first experience with light language in church. And if you speak to anybody who does light language, and I have somebody, on the radio, because I do radio work as well. And I have Cara coming on Friday, and she talks, she gives insight into it and into light language, and she does the light language over the airwaves. And I asked her a question, and I said, what is your opinion on light language or on speaking in tongues as we knew it? And she said she thought that it's the baby language of light language. What we learn in church is the baby language of light language, which kind of makes sense if you think about it, because we do sound quite baby-like in speaking of tongues. And then we get to light language now, as we have developed in other areas of our spiritual journey or our intuitive journey, right? We've suddenly come up with now, okay, we speak languages. And I actually find that I fully understand what light language means more now than ever before. I mean, look, I did a study on it. I did it a lot. It's something that even when I was in church, the last church I was in, the minister there had spoken of light language, or speaking in tongues, but light language. And he always said that if you prayed in tongues, your ego got out of the way and you would get the answers that you wanted. And so, I found that it worked a lot. And then after a while, you forget about that because you get onto something else and you're learning something new. Because this is what this life is. This life is, for me, my understanding or belief is that we are on the journey to ourselves here. At the moment, this is what I feel. I'm finding me. I'm remembering the me that I chose to be, that I am. And when I chose the amnesia to come into this lifetime, I feel like, okay, I'm starting to remember the real me, the greater me, right? And so I feel like the language has also evolved in that way. And I feel with light language, not only are we discovering that we speak languages of other nationalities on the planet, but we are discovering that we speak languages of the galactics. I did a light language session with somebody a few months ago because she wanted to have the experience of this. And afterwards, she asked me, so what was the language you spoke? Because she lay down and she said, all right, I'll let you do whatever you do. So I did the toning, and I spoke the language that came to me. And I said, I don't know what language that is, because I don't really know. Every time I speak a language, I don't know for exactly what that is, because remember, it's the soul's memory. It's not my conscious memory of it. Anyway, as I was walking away, I said goodbye to her and everything. She was in her home, and we did this on WhatsApp. And I walked away. And as I was walking away, I heard Arcturian. And then I sent her a message the following day, and I said, you know what? I actually, I got that this was Arcturian. And she said, I got it was Arcturian whilst I was lying there and you were doing this language. And I thought, well, she just thought she'd ask me and that might confirm it for her, but I didn't confirm it right away because I said I didn't. But as I was walking away from turning off the light or whatever, my higher self told me that. So I think what I've discovered in the last 12 months, and we've now been friends for probably 18 months. We've known each other because we've met through Craig. Craig, by the way, for our audience, Craig is a friend of ours that does energy healing and is a Reiki master and does a lot of, energy work as well. So when we were doing the light language, when we were in these sessions with Craig, what I started to feel was healing coming through the language, because I would feel all these vibrations in my hands and I'd feel the heat in my body. And I would think, oh my gosh, because if I now touched somebody with that, there would be healing. And I can feel the healing right now as I'm speaking to you. I can feel the heat coming out of my hands as I'm speaking about it. It's like it's crazy, right? But I suddenly felt that you could do healing with that. And then I thought, wow, there's another aspect of it. Not only do you pray in light language to ask for the things you can't, that when you ask for in your own language, that your conscious language, like in our case English, your ego gets in the way because of all the programming of the mind, right? If you understood what you were asking for. But when you do it in language, you don't know what that's about. It just comes through.
Yeah.
Go on, you
Yeah.
tell me.
Yeah. No, you're right. This is the thing that I wanted to say as well. So I'm glad you brought that up. That when I was first coming out from church to new space, under the title of Child of God this time, as opposed to any organized cult, faith, religion, whatever. Child of God, child of the universe. You know, this language came sort of, yeah, it became difficult to share because I had a sort of a feeling that I needed to understand what it was saying before I shared it. And that, again, coming from what I had been told within the church, is that, you know, you don't go using this gift, because it's they call it one of the lesser gifts. This is the other thing,
Wow.
that light language or speaking in tongues is one of the lesser gifts. You know, you should ask for prophecy, or you should ask for something greater than speaking in this language that nobody understands, you know. But the point is that the secret space where you exist, where you reside from, that language, as you were saying, is the communication between source with source, is the most powerful you could possibly have. And it actually has to bypass the mind, because we
Exactly.
get to judge, we get to decide what's right, what's not right. Oh, I can't say that. I mean, like we do now, you know, we censor ourselves, censor ourselves right now. And, you know, somebody has said to me quite a few times, actually, you know, Louise, you have no filters, you know. And I'm thinking, but I, you know, quite frankly, I don't care. You know, this is the point. I get to the point where I don't care, because this is all sort of supposition. This is all sort of personal spaces for people who have been, you know, hugely invaded. So they have to put up all these boundaries on themselves. So they can't stand it when somebody wants to come and just speak a truth, you know, and particularly if it's uninvited. Which we often do. We often give a truth which hasn't been invited or so, but it just happens, you know, as human being. But we live in an age where we're oversensitizing ourselves, and, you know, you can't say this to offend this person, you might offend that person, and it just gets too much. So in the end, you just got to come back to being you. Just come back to being you. Just clear all of that out the way, and just come back to being you. And so I had to address this business of, well, I don't understand the language that I'm sharing, and so therefore would it be right to speak it, because I can't tell anybody what it's saying. But then the information comes, you know, but it's not up to you to know.
No, and
It's not up
it's
to know.
not.
Sometimes when you're
Yeah,
speaking with someone, it's a personal message between them
absolutely.
and their source, and you just happen to be a channel
Yeah,
giving that information, or laying some foundation of something that is already within that person. It's not making you special, or you are needed in that way. You just happen to be at the right place because somebody was needing help. We all need help. We can't do
yeah,
everything by ourselves. We all
that's
need
right.
help. We all need one another in some way, shape, or form, particularly at those moments in our lives. And it'll always happen where you get stuck, you stop, you feel, you know, heavy or whatever. And you need someone sometimes to come along and just say, let me help you up. You know, what's
Yeah,
occurring here, just to open a pocket of light so that you can get out of that space, you know, because we can
yeah.
trap ourselves in so many ways, and be trapped by others intentionally and unintentionally. So this
Mm,
language it's so much more than a lesser gift, as to, you know, as it's been quoted in religious circles. It is phenomenal, but I realized that it didn't matter that I didn't understand what was
yeah.
being said,
I,
because you get
yeah,
an essence, don't you? You
yeah,
get an essence sometimes.
yeah,
And again, you're given the information should you need to know, And then you just have to say quite openly, when somebody says to you, do you know what you said? And if you don't, you don't. You just have to be up front.
That's
I
right.
don't. It's personal. That's a message for you. Hopefully you've recorded it for them. They can go away and spend time with it, and it'll make sense to them over that period of time.
So for me, I want to say, like you're saying that where you were, they said like tongues was a lesser of the gifts, right? Where I was, tongues was the higher of the gifts. Prophecy was the lesser of the gifts.
Oh, wow.
The minister did not want to have anybody doing prophecy around him because he just did not like that idea, right?
Amazing.
So I think it's always a matter of opinion. It's a matter of the perspective or the experience that group of people have had, or the person in charge there has had. And so all the gifts of the Spirit, I believe, have equal value.
Absolutely.
And I think they intermingle each other and they complement each other, and they are connected irrespective of what, because if you are given prophecy, you have to apply wisdom, discernment, right? You have to apply those things to that, because that's what you're expected to do, right? Because those are the gifts as well, right? And and then there you've got speaking in tongues, and speaking in tongues, you can pray in tongues, you can prophesy in tongues, you can speak in tongues. There's so many within that. There's all those facets, and the thing of the matter is that who would have thought healing would have anything to do with speaking in tongues? Who would have thought that healing would have anything to do with wisdom and discernment? But in order to heal, you might be able, a lot of the wisdom and discernment gift comes into it, because from healing, you can heal the person. You can, lay hands and heal somebody, but you can also get some discernment of why that sickness was there or why that pain was there. You can get prophecy even coming through there. So they're all intermingled. And so that's why I think, calling it a lesser gift, any of them, it's like, we don't need to do that, do we?
Yeah.
It's just what it is.
Scriptural. It's actually written in the scriptures, which is astounding.
Exactly.
The tongues is the lesser gift. So that kind of stuck with me at first. Again, when you're green, and I say when you're green, when you're new at these sort of things, you're willing to take on anything that anybody is saying to you, because you don't know any better. You're learning, and I've always been up, and I think that's probably one of my biggest bugbears is the expectation people have that you should know better.
Yeah.
But why should I know better? If I don't know, I don't know.
Exactly.
And people need to be okay with that. If you don't know, you don't know. And we don't know an awful lot, but we also know a lot. We're coming to know a lot. But just because you have had an experience in a particular space doesn't mean to say that's all there is about that. There's so much more to that.
Exactly.
But that will come should you want to experience that. Again, it's always up to us. So you said earlier about coming to this planet and stuff. I see this sort of thing of, we have arrived in a sweet shop.
Absolutely.
Absolutely. And there's all manner of flavors, but it just is incredible how many times we tend to spend our time in the bitter and the sour and the not so digestibles, when there's a whole pile of sort of intermediates and totally insanely gorgeous, flavors on the other side. But it's all here. It's all here at the same time.
It's like that because of the programming, is what I think. And I think it's again about the journey to awakening to self. And that's what it's supposed to be. It's supposed to be fun. However, it's not easy when life's coming at you in so many ways. So I see that we will be, we've got that 10-minute thing coming up on here to say to us, our meeting's going to end in 10 minutes. What I think we'll do is, and it's okay if Ishmael Perez can have that problem. It's okay if we have that problem too. I mean, you know what I'm saying? So to our listeners, I'm going to say, we're going to do a little bit of language for you before we go. But before we do that, I want to say thank you so much for joining us. And thank you, Louise, for your time. I know I sprung you because I said, we're going to do this, and that's it. We're doing it. Right. So
It's the only way with me though, isn't it, really? Because it's like, do it now or it just doesn't happen. So yeah, you've got to grab the
yeah, it's
opportunity.
taken a long time for me to get this motivated, my friend. So, there you go. So I just want to say to our audience, thank you. And you know what?
Thank
I hope we're going to have a good ride together,
you.
because I believe that this is an appointed thing that Louise and I are going to do. And we're going to have a lot of other people. I said it in the first video that was quite unprofessional. And I guess maybe you look at this and think, well, why is this one different from that one? But okay, never mind. It's different because Louise is here. Okay. That's why.
He doesn't care.
So, so I want to say that I'm going to bring on a lot of people on here. We're going to have a lot of people come on here because there's a revelation and a revolution of esoteric teachers going on here in New Zealand. And they have got so much to offer. And I believe that the least I can do for them is, because I do it on radio, I want to now do it online. And the least I can do is to give these people a platform. Other people are doing it as well, but this is my heart. And I'm saying I'll give them a platform to talk about what they do and put it out there into the ethers. Because when we put these things out into the ethers, amazing things happen. So, Louise, before we go to the language, is there anything you want to say?
Just yeah, to whatever this unfolds, as it's meant to be. Just enjoy the ride and welcome and allow yourself whenever, particularly whenever Rose and I are here together, because we do a lot of chatting together. We've had some incredible
Amazing
and
chats.
why is it that whenever you're having these conversations you think, oh my god, I should have recorded that, but we have. Here we are, we're doing it now. But I just say that, whenever you're here, just find a space just to be relaxed and know that before anything is even shared when it comes to language or gifts, just the presence here, the light here that both Rose and I represent is the same light that you represent too, because we're all light. There is, without exception, we're all light. And yes, we have darkness with us too. It all has to come together. And what we focus on is what we will escalate. And of course, we want to escalate more of our light. But we do need those dark times. And dark doesn't mean evil. Dark means times of rest as well. So to remember that when you worry about, darkness and what's going on in the world, it's not all bad. Darkness is necessary sometimes in order for you to find yourself. And many of us on this spiritual journey have had dark nights of the soul. I would think more than once. I've certainly had my fair share of them.
Absolutely. I've had a lot of them too. And you think, why am I going around this mountain again? But
Yeah,
it's a topic for another time. We do want to
Yes.
talk about that another time, Dark Night of the Soul.
So just
Louise,
wanted to come, relaxed and ready to receive and just to be. And as you're listening, and let everything that is not resonating with you, just let it float away. Just let it float away. Just come and be in a space of love, knowing that you are accepted and loved just as you are, as we hope that you will accept us in the same light.
That's great. So, Louise, are you going to do some language for us, please?
I will. And again, nothing overly prepared here. I say overly, it's not prepared at all.
It's not prepared at all, but that's the good part about it. Yeah.
So be where you are and just sort of, do the breath thing that you tend to do before you receive something, and just find it easy space. You can close your eyes if you want to, or you can leave them open. It's entirely up to you. And just listen. No strain, no stress. You're not necessarily needing to understand anything, just to receive the sound, frequencies, and vibrations. And may they resonate with you and come to lighten your load. Come to feed you with self-confidence and knowing that the source that is here is almighty, all glorious, all wonderful, all loving. Marakiatash, Kukuriyana mayadatanana. So loving. I tend to feel that the language that comes through me is like a mother's love for her children. So with that in mind, know that you are receiving a love message for you. Marakuyete teshtiyana mayatana. Kukuriya yanana mayatane kialala. Gururukuta dashtayati yenene. Muta nana nakarara. Yarara maya nana makutu dushturu. Lelele kiane. Mano no mokutu dushtayatana. Lululu arara. Muyetiene. Muyetiene. And for the moment, so it is.
Are we good?
Mm-hmm.
Good.
Mm-hmm.
All right. As we're coming back, everybody,
Mm-hmm.
take a moment to just come back and breathe. So today was our first podcast, and we will work on being able to be here longer without a timer on us, and we'll go from there. And so thank you everybody for joining us.
Thank you.
And we will catch you next time. I believe probably in the next couple of days, I'll do another podcast and put it on, because I'm suddenly having all these downloads of what I'm supposed to do. And it's like coming at me like I didn't know it could ever come at me. So, okay, anything can happen. I always say on the radio show that I do, I say anything can happen on the show. I've got to tell you on this channel, anything can happen too.
True enough. True enough.
Okay, so much love. Thank you so much, everybody. Bye.
Lots of love. Bless you, Rose. Lots of love
Bless
to you. Bye
Lots
now.
of love. Namaste. Goodbye. Take care, everyone.
Bye.
Bye.